Hi guys, so I'm going to do a short video here on kettlebell swings. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on a specific style. There's different styles of kettlebell swings. There's an actual sport called kettlebell sport. So depending on the style, depending on the way you're trying to train, the styles can vary slightly. There's something called soft style and hard style. Soft style tends to bring in a lot of high volume repetitions, like hundreds at a time. When it comes to power stuff and stuff that might benefit your sprinting and running, then I tend to veer closer towards hard style. But there is a sort of you could sort of mix and match a wee bit. There's one's not incorrect and correct. But for us, what I want you to focus on here is try to maximise the power you can generate in each swing. So we're going to be doing shorter, less reps, maybe 5 to 15, okay? But there's a few fundamental things I want you to think about when we're doing this. First is, I want you to try and think of the kettlebell swing as a bit more like a backwards to forwards movement as opposed to an up and down movement, okay? So if you do that, what it does right away is it lends itself to bringing in your hamstrings more and the glutes, whereas if you think about it more as a downward movement, you're probably going to bring in your quads a bit more and they tend to fatigue a bit faster. Plus I also find that if anyone that gets back pain with kettlebell swings, one of the main reasons is sometimes there's too much, the weight's coming down too centrally and the lower back gets a bit loaded. And there's not enough room for the momentum of the swing to become, or the weight to become weightless at any point. So I want you to think it's a backwards to forwards movement. When the kettlebell comes through here, right, it should stay up nice and high, which also plays into the whole idea of backwards to forwards. Your wrist or your forearm should make contact with your inner thigh area when you're holding the kettlebell, like this, okay? So it has to make contact here. And the reason for that is the movement is coming from the glutes and the hamstrings. So if there's, and the idea is that you're going to then nudge the kettlebell out in front of you via this area, via that pelvic movement that we are familiar with from hip thrusts. So if there's no contact here, then it's impossible to nudge the weight out in front of you. And if there's no contact and it's impossible to do that, then it means that the movement is coming from the lower back and the shoulders, which isn't what it's meant to be, okay? So bear that in mind, there has to be contact here. And the idea is that then from here, you're very quickly and rapidly clenching the glutes to drive and nudge the kettlebell out in front of you. And because you're just nudging it out in front of you, again, there's different styles of kettlebells. I'm aware of this sort of CrossFit style where you raise the kettlebell up high. But the style we're wanting to focus on is just maximal power output in each swing. So you're just relying on momentum of the power you generate to bring the kettlebell back up. A good cue that I was given years ago by a guy called Steve Cotter when I did one of his kettlebell courses was, imagine when you're doing a kettlebell, it was more in relation, to be honest, to a one arm swing, okay? But it holds true for a two arm swing as well, and that was, imagine that you're trying to hold a couple of books under your armpits so that you don't swing up too much. So for example, if you have a slight bend in your elbows, you want to try and keep everything, everything quite close, like there, okay? So there's a wee bit, you can obviously let your arms come out a little bit from your body, but we don't want to see it come all the way up, okay? So we want to have it here, so that this part of the body, the hand can come up, but we want to keep the top part of your arm relatively within a sort of reasonable distance from your body, okay? The next thing I want you to remember is, at the top of the kettlebell swing here, it's called the float point, and what that means is it should be weightless for a split second, because it's floating, it's run out of energy going up and it's about to come back down to earth because of gravity, right? So there's a very split second where it's floating, and the reason that's also important is because if there is no float point, it's because you're relying on your shoulders too much. You're turning it into a kettlebell front raise when using the shoulders, which is not meant to be. So it should help and discourage you from gripping it too tight. So if you feel you're gripping it too tight and you're raising your shoulders, again, these are wee feedback signs to think, right, wait, I'm maybe not doing this right. You should feel a sort of brief moment like a pendulum where you're at zero here, and then it's going to drop back down, driving it up, drop back down, okay? And that's what it is ultimately, it's almost a pendulum type movement, backwards and forwards, okay? I mentioned it in the hip thrust video that the two parts of the movement, the hip thrust and the kettlebell swing, are quite similar because they're driven via the pelvis and the hips. So you're doing that to nudge the kettlebell out. So that's your finish position of a kettlebell swing there, okay, with the glutes tucked hip thrust style and the abdominal muscles engaged. Almost see that as your braking point, as in a brake, as in a car brake. It's almost like you're driving up, stop, you're just slamming the brakes on. You're using your abdominal muscles and your glutes to slam the brakes on to prevent you from going back into hyperextension of your lower back, which some people tend to do. Okay, so if you feel you're struggling to get any movement without leaning back, again, it's just a sign that you're maybe not getting enough. First of all, enough of a range of movement in the back phase, and then enough power generation, rapid power generation through your hips. So these are wee things to think about. Okay, and the final thing I wanted to just go through is the start. If you start a few inches behind the kettlebell like that, it just means that you've got an automatic angle to just start your swing, so you can just pull it through and start. Okay, so I'll just do a few to show you what I mean. So just from there, driving through. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Exhale as you drive the hips forward. And as you'll see, like, my arms aren't coming up, especially the top of my arms, they're not coming up too far. You're going to keep looking at the kettlebell as you swing it, so we don't want to see this. Okay, don't look forward like this. Keep your eyes down, looking at the kettlebell, and that just helps keep your neck in a nice sort of neutral position. Okay, so we don't want to see sort of mega back swings. It's all about the pelvic movement via the glutes and hamstrings. So it's important that you sort of are aware of that and that you practice it. And again, it's another reason to really master the hip thrust, because it will come into play on the kettlebell swing as well. But that gets you out of breath when you're trying to talk. So that's, as I said, it's quite a quick video. It takes a bit of practice. There is different styles of kettlebell swings, but for what we want to do at the moment, that's some of the fundamentals. Okay, hope that helps.